working for you. A weekly talk radio program which highlights developments of national interest and the activities of your St. Kitts Nevis government. Join host Roy Williams as he presents news, views, reports, and interviews about everything regarding the activities of the Team Unity government and the building of our communities and the development of St. Kitts Nevis. Tune in and call in to interact with your government and share your views regarding the upward forward development of your community and our beautiful Twin Island Federation. Working for you is weekly, every Wednesday live from 1:30 p.m. to 3 p.m. on ZIZ Radio, Win FM, and Sugar City FM with rebroadcast on participating stations. Working for you.
Good afternoon and a pleasant welcome to Working for You. This is the weekly government program where you can keep up to date with the prosperity agenda of the government. Thank you for tuning in to today's program, and we promise you a very lively discussion today, one in which you are, I'm sure, very interested. Today we are going to be talking about taxes, paying one taxes, being a good citizen, because a good citizen, of course, is one who pays his or her taxes, among other things. Today I have with me Mr. Edward Gift, who is no stranger to this program, although he has been here, I think, 2 years ago, the 13th of April, 2016, if I can recall correctly. And today we are going to be discussing the importance of government revenue to the sustainable development agenda and the development on a whole, economic, human, and social development. Mr. Gift, welcome to this program.
Good afternoon. Welcome, Roy. Thank you for having me here today.
You're always welcome on this program. You know, people a lot of times don't like to hear about taxes. Some people see taxation as theft, government theft, government stealing from the people. But government is not is stealing from the people. But without taxes, the government is not able to carry out its work, and we know that. Of course, we know from long time ago, biblical times, tax collectors were probably the most hated people that there were. And one of the reasons why they were hated is because they used to overtax the people. Nicodemus, of course, comes to mind. And of course, you know, he was a very short man in stature, and he wanted to change his life, and he went up into a tree so that he could see Jesus and so on. And he went up there basically, no, that was not Nicodemus. He went in the night to look for Jesus. And that is because he was so hated in the community, because he used to overtax the people. Okay. Today we are here to talk about taxes. Mr. Gift, why pay taxes?
Well, Roy. First I'd like to thank all those citizens in St. Kitts and Nevis who have been responsible and have paid their taxes on time. The taxes that they have paid has rebounded in the development and growth of the Federation, where we are considered to be one of the best countries in the Caribbean region and markedly in the world in terms of our high living standard. The taxes that you pay in turn is transformed into goods and services for the Federation and its people, that you would see these funds that are currently being invested in the rehabilitation and development work of the industrial site daycare center. That is where your tax dollars goes. It rebounds into goods and services. And work that is done to upgrade the different playfields around the Federation, that is where that money comes from. It is financed from our taxes that the citizens in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis pay.
So in other words, we can look at it as when you pay your taxes, you're really benefiting yourself and benefiting the country. It's like giving yourself a gift.
Yes, certainly. That is, when persons pay their taxes on time, it leads to children being able to be afforded a school meals program. It's being allowed the Federation to procure more medication for senior citizens and persons so disadvantaged.
Certainly. Mr. Gift, how would you explain a fair and equitable tax system? Because that is always a concern. How would you explain a tax system that is fair and equitable?
Well, a tax system that is fair and equitable, this would see no one particular element in the society being paid a higher percentage or burden of their taxes compared to other groups. There's always a saying that there is no free lunch. That is, if something is provided free to one element of the society, that means another sector in the society has to go and pay a higher share in terms of taxes. An equitable system is one that results in all of its citizens paying the amount of taxes that they could reasonably afford, and which allows for the growth and development of the Federation at the same time, because there could be no growth and development unless the country has financing for that. And there are really three ways we could generate financing for a country. One, you could rely on the goodwill of a country to just donate. Two, you could go and borrow loans, and there have been many stories that we could have that we have in the Federation for that. Or thirdly, you could generate that funds from the collection of taxes on goods and services that are consumed within the Federation.
Okay, now what are some of the basic conditions of a good tax system? From listening to you, I heard one. Of course, fairness or equity. That came out just now in what you said. What are some others?
Well, some of the other hallmarks of a good tax system is that, one, the tax system should be one that allows for growth within the economy, that is, allow the business sector and other entrepreneurs to want to invest. It is a tax system should be one also that does not place an undue burden on its citizens.
So we're talking here fairness again.
Yes, fairness. The tax system should be one that is, some persons call that is progressive, that is, it allows for when there is economic growth in the country, that the country generates sufficient to finance that.
Yes.
Also, when there is slowdown in the economic activity, the tax system should be so flexible that the government should not have to increase its rates to finance itself and the services it wishes to provide.
Certainly. Now, of course, adequacy. A tax system, I think, should be adequate.
Yes.
The simplicity, which I think will come out. It should not be anything that is very complex and complicated for people. The transparency, there should be transparency in a tax system as well, and the administrative ease, which I think that you have done such a good job of at the Department of Inland Revenue, making it much easier for taxpayers to do business with the department and so on. Now, I heard you mention before two concepts. You spoke about horizontal and vertical in terms of the concepts of equity. What do you mean by those?
When you speak of horizontal, you speak in terms of the breadth of the tax system, how broad-based it is, and the view of most of philosophers on tax is that a tax system should be as simple as possible and as broad-based. This would allow it to have very low rates. So if everyone is paying a small portion of the tax, that is, it will result in the tax base rates being very low. In the case of our VAT, it's a very broad-based tax compared to a lot of the other countries. The rate is at 17%. In some other countries like Europe and different places, their VAT goes as high as to 25-22%, those sort of rates. So when you're talking about horizontal, you're looking at it's broad-based. The more persons paying, you allow a smaller percentage of those to pay the tax. When you speak about the verticalness of a tax system, here now you're looking at how the rates them are structured to some extent. The less people are taxed would result in much higher rates in terms of what is persons are required to pay. In the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, we are trying to move to a situation whereby we have much lower rates of tax. I think the Prime Minister had indicated in his budget address that once the fiscal space permit in his budget address, that they would be looking at reducing the rates. Now all this depends upon one of the things that you say, the simplicity, and we at the department have been trying several new initiatives to make the cost of administrating the system much cheaper for the Federation by having different options how taxpayers can interact with the department.
Right, so VAT is basically vertical.
Well, VAT is horizontal.
It is horizontal.
A tax that is considered to be broad-based.
It is broad-based. Now, income tax. We don't have income tax in St. Kitts. Of course, you know, sometimes with the vertical concept of equity when it comes to taxation, is that those who are better off should pay at least the same proportion of income in taxes as those who are less well off. That's the vertical. And sometimes you have the regressive and the proportional and the progressive. What's the difference in terms of those? The regressive tax and the progressive tax.
Well, with progressive tax rates, again, there are some persons, some economists are of the view that the more income that you make, the higher you should contribute in terms of taxes to the country. I think that was a prevailing view that you would have had coming out at some point early in the development. Also, there's some taxes that people consider to be regressive in nature. They're saying that these taxes, because of how they are structured, because your income is much smaller, that is, you pay a much higher proportion of those because you consume more goods.
Now, you mentioned, of course, meeting the basic needs of society, and that is really one of the reasons why people pay tax. You must provide enough revenue in order to meet the basic needs of society and the demand for public services. You mentioned that earlier. Now, who determines what is enough revenue, and what public services, the demand for public services, and what is enough revenue? Who determines that? What is enough?
Well, ultimately, a decision like that is always come back and it's made by the citizens of the country. That is, as a government, persons have argued that the government have certain main functions. That the government role is to protect its citizens in the form of provision of national security, police, defense forces. Some persons have said it's to educate, that is to provide for education from the early childhood, secondary, and even some countries now have taken it further and provided free universal free university education. Another role of a government Persons of Act is to provision of care, and this care not only works to care of the elderly but care of the society. And now in St. Kitts and Nevis, now as Trust has been speaking with regards to having a national health care scheme. Now, if this is something that the citizens of the country believe this is something that should be in place, and they would have voted for something like that. Certain things of that have certain implication, because a national health scheme is something that is not free. That is, it would cost money in terms of now providing the health care, paying for the free medical care for those persons. I know in some other countries, like for example where I studied in Barbados, they have actually an entire administration that administer this national health scheme on behalf of the government, and there's a separate levy or tax that just goes to funding the national care in some countries. So again, it depends on what are the demands of the society. Then what person would recognize is that as a government, that is, if the government, just as like an individual, that if it raises $10 and it has to spend $12, that additional $2 have to come from somewhere. And it has to come in the form of whether loans, you're borrowing from a sister, in the case you'll be borrowing from a bank, or you have to raise taxes for that. So as a country, we have to decide, okay, how we want our government to finance. If it always wanted to take loans, then that means you take loans, you always have to go and raise money to repay those loans in the form of taxes.
Sure. Now, there's always the question of transparency and transparency in government. And we're here talking about the taxation system, the tax system. How transparent is our tax system? When I speak about transparency, could you speak to, for example, where taxpayers can easily find information about the tax system and how the tax money is used?
In terms of the transparency of the tax system, from our analysis of it is that we're in the process of providing more information about in terms of where the tax revenues actually go. That is, a lot of persons do not recognize that, listen, their tax dollars actually get translated into goods and services that the government would actually provide. So for example, the government would go about doing provision of vehicles for the police force, those sort of entities, and some of those would be coming from the tax revenues. There was some certain development in regards to the new cruise ship facility. Yes, some of it is loan, but also a percentage of that is money that the government would also have to put in. So the aspect of transparency, I think that we have to just do a better job of ensuring that citizens understand where their tax dollars actually go in terms of that.
Okay, fine. Now the government is or has recently announced or taken a decision to give an amnesty on property tax. The first thing I want you to tell me is, what is a tax amnesty?
Well, basically a tax amnesty, this is an opportunity that where government has allowed taxpayers who have become delinquent in their taxes to come forward and settle these taxes with reduced interest and penalties. The government recognized at the start of 2018 the amount that it had in property tax arrears stood around $32.2 million. And as we're speaking about financing, that is, the government recognized that, listen, if a large number of citizens could pay those arrears that they have in property taxes, it won't have to go about increasing the taxes on other elements. So it's really here an opportunity where the government is saying, listen, some persons have not been as responsible as they should have. They've used a lot of goods and services in the country. They're saying that, okay, let's give them an opportunity. We could understand that circumstances happen, persons go through difficult financial times, and we want to say, come forward, settle those outstanding arrears at reduced interest and penalties. That's what the government is trying to do.
And that's what an amnesty is?
Yes.
Okay. Now it is given for a certain period, right? It is given for a certain period of time, and it is given to businesses and individuals. Am I correct?
Yes, it's given to all sectors within the society.
Mm-hmm. And the intention of it is basically to bring or to give benefits to both parties, both the taxpayer and the government.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
certainly.
Mm-hmm.
The government is hoping that this additional funds that you receive would give it the financial flexibility to aggressively pursue a lot of its projects as part of its prosperity agenda.
Mm-hmm.
And it also recognizes that some citizens would say, listen, as a result of the passage of the hurricane recently, and wants to assist you in part of getting over your whatever troubles that you had in the past by providing this amnesty.
Mm-hmm. Right. So the amnesty is on property tax. What is property tax? And do you have a property tax calculator?
Property tax is a tax that is levied on persons who owns land and property within the Federation. It's paid by both individuals and businesses. I like your question. We currently do not have a property tax calculator on our website, but we do have examples there of how the tax is calculated. You could find that information at sknird.com. Also, as part of the process where we are trying to be more transparent, that is, when we initially issue your first assessment for the property tax bill as it is, that is, we do it in the form of a consultation. We issue the notice, then we explain to you that, listen, you're now free to come into the department and discuss how we arrived at your assessment, so that then you could ensure that you are paying relatively the same amount to somebody in your same location. Mm-hmm. Because property tax, a key element of it is based not only on the rates, but it's also determined by where you are located within the Federation.
Right, but it's based on the value of your property, isn't that so? The value of the property that you have. Isn't that how you calculate it?
Yes, it's based upon the value of the property that you have, but as a result of your location, 5,000 square feet of land that is located next to Marriott would be worth much more than 5,000 square feet
so
of
land in
land.
Certain areas are
so
worth more than in other areas. Yeah. Right. Now, my research tells me that property tax is one of the oldest forms of taxation, dating back to the 6th century. Mm-hmm. You know, before the Common Era. Mm-hmm. The 6th century. Are there any property tax exemptions? And who are exempted and why?
Within the Property Tax Act, it does provide for certain exemptions. That is, an exemption is provided for certain education institutions. It's provided for religious organization and certain agricultural land as a proof. That is, it's a key part of the government policy to promote its national security by having as much production of goods and of agricultural products locally. So there is a exemption that is crafted in the Act. Mm-hmm. Also, certain statutory bodies are provided with certain exemptions on the Act.
Certainly.
For example, like Social Security.
Okay. All right. Now, some people might say, you know, when you have amnesties and so on, that you're punishing the good taxpayers and you're rewarding the delinquent ones with a tax amnesty. Some may ask, isn't this encouraging delinquency? So that people will not pay their taxes, but wait for the next amnesty to be announced. What would you say?
Well, that's a very good question, and sometimes you put a glass in front of a person and it's just half full. One person may tell you it's half empty, the other one say it's half full. So it depends upon the eyes that you look at it. In terms of persons who have paid on time, that is one thing that we do at the department, is that if we recognize that you have a history of paying on time and for some reason you run into some financial difficulty or other circumstances that do not permit you to pay, we always ask you to come in, and then we normally have allocations for you to pay a payment plan or pay item without interest or penalties. We may waive them because we recognize you're very compliant.
So there are rewards for good taxpayers.
Yes. In addition, as part of this property tax amnesty, we do have an award there where now we're offering 6 electronic tablets to persons who would have paid their property tax on or before June 30th online with us. So we want persons to, again, who've decided that they want to pay online and they pay on or before June 30th, is that the government is assisting providing 6 tablets for those.
Okay. Now, what if I already have a payment arrangement with Inland Revenue? What would you do?
If you already have an existing payment arrangement with Inland Revenue for property tax, what we would do is that we would contact you in terms to have that payment agreement renegotiated, and in light of your commitment in terms of paying, that is, we provide normally a full waiver of interest and penalties.
Okay.
Bearing in mind that is with any payment arrangement, once you break that payment arrangement, however, that is the interest and the penalties then will become applicable.
Okay. Now what if I have 14 houses?
Well, if your Lord has blessed you with 14 houses, the amnesty is only for one property. So then you then have to come in and make arrangement with us for those 14 different properties that you own.
Okay. Now, what are some of the benefits of the amnesty for business people, for example? Because you know, businesses pay more taxes than, for example, an individual. So what would be some of the benefits of the tax amnesty, the property tax amnesty for business people?
Well, for business persons, it's an opportunity for them where they could actually reduce their expenses or costs. That is, some businesses, just like individuals, would run into situations where they don't pay on time and have accumulated arrears, and then therefore by taking advantage of the amnesty and paying this reduced amount, they would have saved tremendous costs for their businesses. Also, I think there's an advantage, that is, if they pay their taxes upfront and on time, it would normally be a better cost savings in terms of how they use their dollars, because the banks don't pay them no interest on their current accounts. So it would be better if they recognize that, hey, they've paid their taxes upfront.
Right. And also, what about the legal issues? You have people, for example, some businesses do not register.
Yes.
And some people try to cheat the system by not registering. You're not in the system, so you're hiding basically. Well, and you are evading paying your taxes.
Yes, well, for those persons who have decided to have taken the route of being tax evaders, that is, when they eventually caught by the department, they would be required to pay interest and penalties in full. That is what we normally, when we find persons who evade tax, we unfortunately apply the full letter of the law to them and require them to pay all the interest and penalties, because we don't see it as something that is equitable now for the other business or other common man would have made the commitment and sacrifice and paid on time.
Mm-hmm. I think there are certain other benefits, Mr. Gift. For example, you want your business or your company to have a good record. You don't want to be known as the business who is evading taxes. And also, the amnesty encourages businesses to play fairly. Isn't that so?
Well, it encourages them to play fairly, and it allows the business to have a good social standing. Also, there is a unique advantage, that is any business that is trying to take advantage of any government exemption or incentive, the government now is requiring them to present a tax clearance certificate from the Inland Revenue Department.
Okay.
So as part of that tax clearance certificate, that is, you must have either paid off all your tax or shown that you're in a made satisfactory arrangements with the Comptroller of Inland Revenue to settle those taxes on time. So businesses themselves, they need to take advantage of the amnesty or ensure that they're in good standing with the Inland Revenue Department, because the contracts they get from government is actually came from taxes that other persons would have paid.
Okay. Now how long is the amnesty, and from when to when?
The amnesty runs from June 1st to June 30th.
So it's 1 month?
Yes, 1 month. This year, because June 30th falls on a Saturday, automatically under the Inland Revenue tax rules, where the last day for performing an act falls on a non-working day, then it moves to the next working day, which will be the Monday, which is July the 2nd.
Okay. Now tell me something. The VAT days that the government has during December, are they a type of amnesty? Are they a kind of, I don't know.
Well, some people see them as an amnesty. Other persons see them as a reward for persons who would have actually engaged in consumption during the year. So it could be viewed as an amnesty in some aspects, where the tax is reduced to a very low amount, and also it's a reward for those consumers who have engaged in spending throughout the year, to say, let them see that, listen, there is a benefit in terms of you ensuring that you're a good citizen.
Okay. Now, what are some other amnesties that the government has given? We speak now about the property tax amnesty. What are some other amnesties?
Well, I think previously, around in 2009, the government had provided a similar property tax amnesty that was provided, that allowed government to raise around $2.9 million in tax revenues. So these are some form of amnesties that are given. Also, from time to time, that is, we provide a filing amnesty, whereby persons could come to the department and file whatever tax returns or provide whatever information to the department after the due date, and we'll make some consideration for some sort of reduction in the interest and penalties.
Okay. Now, one of the things of a good tax system that we mentioned is that of administrative ease. We mentioned that earlier. What are some of the initiatives of the Department of Inland Revenue to bring about administrative ease in the tax system?
Well, what we
for
have
all for taxpayers.
Okay. Well, what we have done is that a lot of our customers have noted to us that is they would love to interact and pay their taxes online. Or so the department has launched several initiatives. One, for example, the property tax. This could be paid online from the comfort of your home, where you log on to skniid.com and you could pay the property tax online, or you could make a payment through National Bank internet portal and you pay inland revenue there. So we have have gone to do that. Also, for businesses, we have provided the facility where persons could file and pay all their taxes online without actually having to come into the office. So we have e-filing and e-payment available. You heard the Prime Minister speaking about with regards to business registration and number of business license being highest amount being issued. For business license or registration information, you do not have to come into the Inland Revenue Department to do that. That could be done online at our website. One of the other things that we are looking at launching later this month is the whole renewal process for the driver's license, where persons could basically visit our website, and once there is a renewal, they could complete the entire process online there, where they upload their documents for their driver's license and pay their fee, and then come to Inland Revenue Department to collect the driver's license card upon presentation of certain information for verification purposes. But the driver's license and the entire vehicle registration process it would be online before the end of the year. The driver's license one we're looking at launching before the end of this month.
Okay, so those documents, when they have been uploaded, would be verified, of course, by the department.
Yes.
Of course, you know, we're getting a lot of phony things recently, especially with respect to driver's license and so on, forged driver's license. People are becoming, you know, very, very clever at forging things and so on. When I look at the police report, I see a lot of this. You know, a forged driver's license, a forged documents, and all that sort of a thing. So I think the Inland Revenue has to be up to the times.
Well,
in terms of recognizing forged documents and doing their background checks and all that sort of a thing. Otherwise, people can easily get into the system with documents that are not theirs.
Yes, yes, and we understand our responsibility with regards to this process. This is something that we have not taken lightly, and while we are launching this process, we want to also include the process where that we'll be doing certain verification checks with other state agencies that would make the process much easier when we move online, so that we could have later on automatic validation of information from whether the Social Security or even the vehicle inspection sites that they have around the Federation. Again, persons that move as far as counterfeiting money.
Yes.
So persons that tend to counterfeiting a driver's license is something that we will have to live with, but we just have to make sure that we include the different safeguards and parameters to reduce the risk of that. We can't completely eliminate it, but we must work on reducing the risk of its occurrence to as low as possible rates as possible.
Sure. Now, tax amnesty is one way to encourage tax compliance. I think we've established that. What are some other strategies that the department is involved in to encourage compliance?
Well, glad you brought up that. What we have recognized is that the tax compliance rate for property tax has increased from around 2011. It was around 27.38%. Now, last year, 2017, the compliance rate was 47% in terms of persons paying their property taxes. And this has been by no accident. That is, the department has had a strategic plan in place where its focus is on really improving compliance, because we recognize that, listen, the only way that we could ensure that we keep the level of our taxes very low is by having as much persons pay as possible and on time. Some of the things that we have, our approach has been a broad-based approach, that we recognize that we can't take the same approach for the evader that you would have talking about, and about the persons who always willingly comply. So we have several strategies. One, for persons who recognize always want to do the right thing, we provided e-services options for them where they could file online of that nature. We have expanded our services by providing more information on our website, and you'd hear on the radio stations. We have established for certain customers relationship managers, where persons, for some of our larger clients, that there are some persons they could contact in terms of having information. Also, when you walk into the office, we've provided a support team there. We've also now, for persons that we recognize that trying to do the right thing but might encounter some little problems that whether it's payments, we have now provided flexible payment plans, so that you could come in and we sit down. Once you provide information to us, we'll develop a payment plan to suit your different needs. We've also ensured that we've expanded the installment options, that is, where persons could go and pay part of their taxes over a period of time. Also, now there's some of those persons that we know they won't do the right thing, that they're going to try to evade the taxes. So in that cause, we are moving towards doing a publication of name of defaulters, and we'd also work with other government agencies to have the garnishment of their funds, where we've issued assessment and they blatantly decide, hey, I'm not paying any taxes, but they still think that they could get a contract for the government. So the government has worked with us in terms of ensuring that practice is not tolerated.
You cannot reward delinquency.
Yes.
So you were saying that people are more compliant today based on the stats that you provided,
yes,
than they were yesterday.
Yes, in 2011 the compliance rate was around 27%. Now in 2017 it's now 47%. In fact, in 2015 it was 34%. 2016 we moved it up to 40%, and now 2017 we have moved it up to 47%. This year now we're hoping to get it over the 50% mark. It will be a tremendous achievement for our federation compared to other tax administration in the Caribbean with regards to property tax.
Right. Now, 2 years ago when you were on this program, you mentioned that the department was involved in a rebranding exercise. You did mention that. Are you pleased with how that rebranding exercise has gone so far in the department?
Well, I would say that based upon the circumstances that we faced, we are pleased. We're in the process of shortly revealing an updated website. Listening to some of the information suggestions from our customers, we have launched a series of updated brochures that persons would see when they come into the office, and also online on our website. So we really expanded the amount of information that we have provided, and try to ensure that the information that we communicate to the public is much more accurate and more broad-based. And as we said, that is we have now provided a lot of persons to support persons who have any questions. That is, you could now walk into the department and within a reasonable time, if you have some in-depth query, an officer would be there to assist you.
Okay.
Part of this effort too is that the government has listened to us in that regard and have made now arrangements to enhance the administrative efficiency for both offices of the Inland Revenue Department to be housed in one location, that is in the old John Gums facility. We're expecting that move to take place somewhere during the last week of June.
Sure.
And once we're in the facility, it's our expectation that we'll even be able to provide a much higher level of customer service than customers expect from us here.
Right. Now, how do you address those who try to evade paying taxes? What penalties are meted out for this?
Well, for persons who try to evade the taxes, and again, from our analysis, that is how we see the whole compliance framework, it's like a triangle.
Yes.
And our approach to it is that you just find a small portion of persons right at the peak of the triangle who don't comply. The majority of the persons at the broad base of the triangle are normally compliant. But for those few persons who don't comply, we apply penalties to the full extent of the law. That is, the VAT identifies that the amount of a penalty for non-registration could be doubled. For property tax, there's and all the other taxes, there's a late filing penalty, a late payment penalty of 10%. The government has also added in late filing penalties of $100 per period or $1,000 for instances. Also, persons who do not comply, we take the action of moving to publicizing their names and taking actions where possible to put garnishment on funds that we know other government departments or entities have for them, so that we say, listen, person deliberately do not pay their taxes, so we're saying, you as a government institution, don't remit any funds to him unless he comes to an arrangement with the Inland Revenue Department of how he is going to settle those outstanding taxes. Because the money that the government department is paying out for him come from taxes that you, Lesroy, would have paid.
Right. So the actually what you were saying is that the government then can deduct money from people's salary if they are not paying their taxes.
Yeah, once they're not paying the taxes on time, the legislation does allow for the garnishment of persons' funds under the Tax Administration and Procedures Act.
Okay, that is interesting. Now, while we speak about the benefits of a tax amnesty, what can be some of the challenges, Mr. Gift, of a tax amnesty?
The challenges of a tax amnesty is that, one, persons, it's always going to be of the mindset, listen, okay, if I can't pay, I'm going to wait until when the other amnesty comes around. So these are some of the challenges that we have in terms of ensuring that people comply with it. There's always the other challenge of it is that some of the persons who pay taxes on time, like you, Lesroy, I would say, listen, I've always complied. What is the reward for me? And that's a point that some of our taxpayers have brought up, and we listened to the suggestions, and we're going to put forward a solution to that problem to the government that may be reflected in the forthcoming policies of the government.
What about the security of the program? The confidentiality of the policy. There has to be some guarantee from the government. Maybe people may feel that, you know, maybe I owe a lot of money and so on, and when I go into pen out, people will know that I owe all of this money and so on, that my business will be on the street?
Well, all persons who work at the Inland Revenue Department has taken an oath of secrecy, where they are not to disclose the confidential affairs of taxpayers. So that is a means by which the government ensure that it safeguards these issues.
Okay.
Also, as we said, that is persons who come in and meet with the collection staff, and a large amount of persons meet with them for a lot of other issues. They don't, I'm not aware of anyone actually divulging that information. A lot of times it's people unknowingly saying that, hey, I went down to Inland Revenue Department to negotiate something for my taxes. Again, all your information regards to your taxes is kept confidential by the officers.
So there is no need to worry about that. Okay.
No.
Okay. Mr. Gift, we are going to go to the phone lines, and I'm sure there are people waiting to call in. So the numbers to call are 1718 577 2916. That is 1718 577 2916. That's the overseas number. And the local number is 465 2555. 465 2555. We welcome your calls. No one is on the line yet, so.
And something that we want to add, Lesroy, is that we are providing extended hours for persons who wish to come into the department. So the department would be open on Saturday, the 23rd of June, and also the 30th of June from 9 until 12 in the morning for persons who want to come in and pay, who are unable to reach during the week for whatever reason it is.
Okay, so you're going to have extended hours during the period of the amnesty.
Yes, during the period of the amnesty.
Okay.
Also, we are going to be having what we call mobile tax centers, where we will be going out and providing more information. Someone is on
yes, someone is on the line. Working for you, good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon, Mr. Williams and your guest.
Yes.
Now, question to the guest. Now, suppose I go and I build a house up the old Bastard High School and the property there. Right away, without any legal authorization to put it there. Do I have to pay tax on that? That's question number one. If I have to, well, the question is this. There is a house built on the beach over Frigate Bay. Is he paying tax for that there land tax? That's my question after the year. I listen after the year. Thank you very much.
Mr. Gift.
Again, taxes, there's nothing in the law that is saying that the taxes that you should be paying should be based upon a matter that is illegal. That is, most of the tax laws say once you have income of a certain amount that you are required to pay the taxes on that item. It is assessed. If you did not have the correct government approvals and everything like that, government certainly has the right to take action. But once you have gotten some sort of value on it, the basis behind the tax is to tax that value.
Okay, we have another caller. Working for you, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon. Concerning house and land tax, you have family overseas. They send you to by the counter to collect documents for them. Do you have to get a written letter or anything like that now? Because I know before you could have just go, give them the information, the numbers and everything, get the document and then go by the cashier.
Okay. That's your question, caller?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, in regards to that, again, we have a responsibility why we have to ensure that we are not disclosing confidential information of another person. We recognize that there have been several family issues where family members have been in disputes about the ownership of property, brothers, sisters, even husband and wives. And one thing that now we have taken the position is that we cannot go and disclose the location of the property, who is it co-owned by. But if you want to go and make a payment, we could provide the account number for you that you could go and make a payment at the office. We don't refuse the payment, but just in terms of providing details on the property to facilitate who owns it and its location and the value of that information, that we do not disclose no one, just as a result that we want to ensure that we are not breaching the confidentiality requirements under the law. But if you are making payment, we will provide you the account number such that you could go to the cashier and make the payment on behalf of the person.
Working for you, good afternoon.
Yes, me again, because it happened to me someday. I went to give the lady the information, and she said from future she wouldn't be able to give me the information, but I got the information, the numbers, everything from my uncle to collect. I had the money from Western Union just to leave the cash there by her and go by the cashier and pay, because it's something I've been doing all the time.
Yes, Carl, I understand, and we recognize that we have several of those situations, but again, we're trying to strike a balance. You have a good relationship.
So, okay, could on the document then, could they put in care of me then? That'll help?
Well, no, we cannot do that like that.
No, I mean, they overseas will call and get the information done or when they come here.
Yes, they will need to either, one, when they actually visit the department, that is, they make an update to the mailing address, or that is, what we have is that we allow persons to act as certain agents for certain taxpayers. So the person could also fill out the form as an agent and give you the right to conduct his or her affairs with the department.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Working for you, good afternoon.
Yeah, could you put me onto the program?
You are on the program. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Two questions for Mr. Gift.
Yes, Mr. Gift.
Yeah, you're taking it now?
Yes, go right ahead.
Yes. Right.
Yeah, Mr. Gift, on the question two, it's a very good program, very informative. No way about that. Two questions. The amnesty. You see, though you're encouraging defaulters. And hello.
Yes.
Yes, we are hearing you. Go right ahead.
Yeah,
with your
two questions for Mr. Gift. And you see, though you're encouraging defaulters to continue to be default, and the good customer who paying are suffering because they are not getting no reward. I think you should give them a discount or something for people who are up to date and are regular payments.
Okay.
That's one. Two.
Yes, we're listening.
Two. You have to be very careful about deducting from people's salary who owe government. That could be a challenge in court. What I suggest you do, right? Maybe you could take it up. Maybe you could ask government to give you a lawyer to deal with this matter, especially inland revenue, because the amount of money that is being owed is quite a hefty sum. So maybe you could ask them to give you a lawyer assigned, somebody who specializes in property taxes and so. You could consider that.
Yes.
Okay, I'll listen off here.
Yes, in terms of your last question first, the deductions from salaries for persons who owe government. When we apply this portion of the law, we respect the privilege that was granted to us, and this is something that we take deliberate steps as outlined in the Act to make sure that this is not a forced action. That is, we have worked with the legal department in that regard. That is, they have outlined to us that we should follow a natural process where we issue 3 letters to the person advising them of the debt, a 4th letter warning them that is we intend to take legal action, and then a 5th letter is then issued before this legal action now will be taken. And during that time, even before the funds is deducted from whatever entity it is, there's a 30-day period which is granted under the law for this to take place. So normally from when the first letter is issued to when you probably arrive at a 5th communication from the department, it normally could have elapsed of a period of maybe 6 to 8 months and even more. So it's something that where we ensure that we follow the letter of the law to a T. And in terms of having a lawyer work with us, that is something that we have advocated to the government, and we'll also welcome your support in having this done, because we just want to ensure that what we've done is legal in terms of the letter of the law and doesn't expose the government to undue legal costs. With regards to the issue that you raised in terms of a discount for persons who are making regular payments, we do like this suggestion, and that is something that we will take on board and ensure that the government is made aware of, and we do like the idea.
Okay, Mr. Gift, it seems to me that wealthy people that have 14 houses or more, millions of dollars, why are they the ones who the probability is much higher that they are evading taxes? It's the rich man, the wealthy man. They're doing it more so than the small man.
Well,
so does wealth, my question to you, do you think that wealth typically enhances the probability of tax evasion? That is the question.
Well, I do not have any empirical data to support me arriving at a conclusion in that regard, but what we have found is that tax planning, which is something illegal, that where persons have a right to structure their affairs to pay as least amount of tax as possible, is practiced by all persons, and persons who have greater access to financial resources. I don't know if you are one of those persons.
I'm not.
Could afford to hire lawyers and tax accountants and those persons to pay as least as taxes
to
as
hide
possible.
their money.
Well, hide their money or pay least as possible taxes under the law. That is, they may look at something and saying, hey, the law doesn't say that this actually applies. That is why the government, over a period of time, you would see them making different amendments to the income tax law or those sort of laws, because they're trying to correct loopholes in the law where they find persons are trying to evade the taxes.
Right. So the wealthy might have more means to evade the taxes.
Yes. In some of those countries, for example, the European countries, they actually have laws that have what you call tax disclosure schemes, where that is a person now must disclose any means under the law, anything that they're doing to restructure the operation so that they're paying lower taxes, so that the government will then have the right to determine that, listen, this tax scheme that we have, it's costing the government, whether it is $60 million a year, so we need to make this correction to this particular tax.
Now, I can draw some hypothesis from what you said, because people paying their taxes points to more trust in a government. Now, you said that there's more tax compliance. Sometimes
Yes.
when there's a crisis of trust, especially in a government, people don't pay their taxes because they think, well, look, public funds are being squandered. The perception of the public is, I am not really seeing, you know, the benefit of me paying tax, what my tax money is doing for the country. I think that money has been wasted here, or money has been wasted here on this project or that project that is of no benefit to me. And that does not really encourage people to pay taxes. So there must be some link between a trust in a government in terms of what the government is doing with the taxpayers' money to benefit the people and tax compliance. What do you think?
Yes, there have been a large amount of research in the area that have shown that, listen, as people could see value in terms of where their tax dollars are going, they are now most likely to pay taxes and on time. And certainly with the government in your agenda.
Working for you, good afternoon.
Hello, yes, good afternoon. I wanted to call in reference to the program that's on the station at the moment.
Yes.
About the taxes.
Yes,
And,
go right ahead.
Number one, I've been trying to get online so I can pay my taxes online for the past 2 days, and for some reason I'm not getting it. It's not going through. It says that the server is not available, so I'm using Safari. Do you use another server?
Yes, I think that this site may not have been optimized for Safari, so I think that it is using Microsoft Explorer or Google Chrome.
Or Google Chrome. Oh,
Yes.
okay, I have
Also,
that. Okay, so I'll
also
try
we
that.
had some technical difficulties with this site yesterday afternoon, but I know it's been back up for
Okay,
today.
so I'll use Explorer Chrome.
Yes.
Okay, and then another thing, I'm listening to the program, and I pay my taxes every year on time. And to find out that people are not paying their taxes and getting an incentive is like rewarding a rude child. If you keep rewarding them, why would they want to pay? Why not penalize them more? Because I pay my taxes every year on time, before it's due, as soon as I get the bill, and sometimes before. So why are people who are not paying their taxes delinquent all the time? And now I'm understanding the rich is the ones who really are delinquent. So why not penalize them more? Why reward them?
Yes, we've taken the suggestion on board, and we'll look at it and certainly have a recommendation for the policy makers. But again, the government wanted to ensure that it be as transparent as possible, so that when it takes much tougher action as outlined in the Act, that is, we could say, listen, the citizens who haven't complied, the government has given you an opportunity to bring your affairs into order.
Yeah.
And the government really wants to show that it's putting a strong foot forward in terms of ensuring that it's sensitive and it listens to those pleas. But again, for you who are responsible citizen, we
Yeah.
commend you, and we want to do something to have it to work. But we need your support. The government would need your support then when it's considered now taking action against those other persons who are delinquent.
Yeah,
At
I
least
know
they
some
would
people are having a
understand.
hard time. I know
Yes.
there's some people, you know, they lost their job, they're having a hard time. You know, and you could find, they can come in and talk and have a meeting and said, you know, I'm having a hard time. I can't pay all that much taxes. I can arrange for payments. But people who can afford it, to deliberately not paying their taxes is an insult to the people who pay their taxes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, no
Yes.
one likes to pay taxes, but we have to. You pay taxes and you die. Those are things you know is going to happen. You can't get around it. And if you try to get around it, there should be penalty.
Yes,
So
certainly.
that's my opinion for the day.
Okay, thank
Have
you
a
very
blessed
much.
day.
Yes, and thank
Bye-bye.
you for your suggestions.
You're welcome.
Right.
Bye.
Now, Mr. Gift, I think that, of course, if, you know, the economy grows, and once, of course, that the money, the revenue, is being pumped into, you know, the engine of growth, or into projects that spur economic growth, where people can really see, you know, a growth in the economy and so on. I think that that as well would encourage more people to pay their taxes, because you're actually seeing the spin-off of the paying of their taxes, that look, the economy is growing and economic development is taking place and so on and so on and so on. I think that is what we were discussing earlier. So in other words, that builds a certain political climate in which there is trust. And so it encourages people to see, well, look, I'm paying my taxes and I really see the benefit of paying my taxes.
Yes, I think I alluded to that. That is, there's been a lot of research that show that is, as a government has become much more transparent and open in terms of how it's working and providing information, it has led to increased compliance and the willingness of persons to pay their obligations on time, because persons now could actually see that where that development is going. So, for example, all the work that is being done at the industrial daycare center,
Yes.
that is part of your tax dollars going to work. It's being financed there by the government.
Mm-hmm. Because sometimes, let's look at it. There's a political climate where there's distrust of the government. And sometimes people don't trust the government because they say, oh, and sometimes we listen to the calypsos and so on, whether from Trinidad come all the way up. There is a perception sometimes that the government is thieving our money and putting it in their pockets. You see?
Mm-hmm.
And if that perception prevails, then it doesn't encourage people to pay their taxes. So people really need to see how paying their taxes is improving the social services, the public services in the country. Better roads, a better healthcare system, a better education system, and so on. I mean, we're a very small country, and I don't think taxes alone can do it. You know, we have to look to other sources and so on. But I believe that that is the basic trust of the people, because
Yes.
we are in a political environment, and the more people see that is being done for them, how the country is advancing and so on, I think that you're going to continue to see an increase in people paying their taxes. I bet you. And you're already seeing it.
Yes, yes, we've seen it. I think that is being rebounded in some of, for example, the gross collection of VAT. That is all the government has exempted VAT from food from year to year, the gross collection that we would have had at Inland Revenue Department for VAT has risen. So this has indicated that, listen, persons have more monies in their pocket, so therefore they're able to go and spend more on other goods and services, and this has allowed the economy to go further. So yes, you see that benefit being translated in terms of the whole expansion of the economy, and persons now willing to pay on time and pay more because they can see directly where their tax dollars is actually going. How is it benefiting them?
Right. Now, what is the difference between tax avoidance and tax evasion? I don't think they're the same thing. What's the difference?
Tax evasion is that where somebody willfully, deliberately decided not to pay the taxes regardless of what the law provides. Tax avoidance is something that is legal where somebody decides to deliberately structure their affairs so that they could pay as least amount of taxes as per the letter of the law. And everybody has a right to do that. That is to pay as least as possible tax as the law states. That is something that is legal, that is supported. That is something that we welcome, because we don't want you to pay us at Inland Revenue more tax than you should have, because then we have to refund you, and then that money that you pay us in excess taxes, you could have used it for something else, for the development of your business or expansion of your home. But no, tax evasion now, where persons now deliberately do not pay, is a whole threat to the tax system, because one, that means revenue that is not coming in that was budgeted. It would result in, normally we have to have a higher rate, because then we may look at the tax system and say, listen, as a result of the VAT not bringing in as much revenues as it should have, then we may have to go and introduce a personal income tax. So persons who evade tax, they actually cause a lot of ripple effects into the entire system.
Now, there has been a lot been said about the business license property rental tax. Can you explain or clarify what this is all about?
The business license rental tax,
property rental, is that it's a law that's been on the books since around the early 1970s, and it provides that for any person that is renting to both a business or a person that they engage into the business, and they're making in excess of $6,000 per quarter, to file a tax return and pay that amount in excess of $6,000 to the Inland Revenue Department. Okay. Now, Mr. Giff, I think that we are out of time. Would you like to wrap up in the next 5 minutes or so?
First, I'd just like to, again, on behalf of the Inland Revenue Department and the country as a whole, to express our appreciation to those responsible citizens who have paid their taxes on time, and this has truly resulted in the benefit for the country of St. Kitts and Nevis. This property tax amnesty, now the government recognizes that the amount of arrears that is outstanding is not sustainable, and it wants to take much tougher action. In this regard, it's allowing those persons who have arrears to come into the department and settle those arrears. So once your arrears is in excess of $100, the amount that you have to pay for interest and penalties is capped at $100. You still have to pay the amount of tax outstanding. So it's a good opportunity for persons to come forward and get their situation resolved. Again, we have payment plans available, because as the caller noted, persons may have financial difficulties, they may have a health issue that did not allow them to comply. So this is an opportunity. I think it's the intention of the government to take much stronger action against these non-defaulters, because as we keep hearing the callers that saying today, we're almost, as a result of the amnesty, encouraging defaulters, and this is something that the government does not want to take on board. Excuse me, please.
Sure.
So that to support this effort, the department would have extended opening hours. That is, on June 23rd and June 30th, the department will be opening on those Saturday mornings from 9 until 12 midday to support persons who want to come into the department to do any sort of business. But again, the focus would be on property tax payments. Also, the department have had a contest online where persons who pay online would be eligible to win a prize in the draws that you would have at the end of the period of June 30th.
What are some of those prices, Mr. Gift?
Well, we want to be...
You want to keep it secret?
Well, some of them we have available. That is, we'll be providing a tablet for persons. Also, we want to let persons know that is, listen, for any situation, if that you recognize that you have a problem that is in terms of complying with your tax responsibility, don't just sit down and just don't do nothing about it. Come in, have a discussion with us about it. We could understand that life happens, and then we'll be able to structure a payment plan according to your needs. And we just want to remind persons that, listen, I always say I don't collect taxes. I always say I collect smiles, because look at it, a child would leave home, not so in a way would get lunch, but as a result of the government school meals program, they will be able to access that. If everybody was paying their taxes on time, every time that your grandmother goes to the hospital, she'll be able to get all the medication that she would, reasonable amount that she'll have available, that is. But again, there are some persons who are defaulters or are delinquent.
Yes. Okay.
But we want to thank the persons. Again, we want persons to be aware that is the new driver's license renewal system online would be available shortly, and all the taxes with the department, you could pay those online at our website, sknird.com.
Okay. That's it, Mr. Gift.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
And thank you too, and I hope it doesn't take you another 2 years before you appear on this program, or, you know, when they have another amnesty for you to come. But you're certainly welcome on this program. You always bring a lot of good information in terms of the Department of Inland Revenue. And since 2 years ago, you said that the Inland Revenue was involved in a rebranding exercise, and we are really seeing the benefits of this rebranding exercise. People are now more compliant in terms of paying their taxes. The way that you have taken the department in terms of, you know, customer service, the education really given to the staff at the Inland Revenue and so on, I think that it is there for everybody to see. So I want to congratulate you in that regard. And thank you for being on our program today.
Yeah, and thank you very much. And I just want to congratulate my team at the Inland Revenue Department, both in St. Kitts and Nevis, and they are hard-working set of persons, and they are committed to doing a very good job. Thank you very much.
All right, Mr. Gift. We want to thank you for tuning in to today's program. Those of you who called in, those of you who listened, we appreciate you every week tuning in to this program. Now, the important thing coming out of today's discussion is that as good citizens, we need to pay our taxes. Now, Benjamin Franklin, who was, you know, a United States president, famously remarked that nothing in this world is certain but death and taxes. Taxes. So we must pay our taxes and be good citizens, because when we pay our taxes, we all benefit from the services that the government provides. And without paying our taxes, the government really finds itself in a difficult space and place to operate. So, Mr. Gift, we thank you once again. You have been listening to another edition of Working for You. I am Lesroy Williams. We will see you next week for another edition. Oh, and I forgot one thing. Working for You is now on the Caribbean Super Station in the Virgin Islands. That is the British Virgin Islands and the US Virgin Islands. And I will give you now it is on 90.9 FM CBN radio in the Virgin Islands, the Caribbean Super Station. And those of you in the Virgin Islands, British Virgin Islands and US Virgin Islands, you can tune in to Working for You. Have a good day. Stay up to date with news, programs, and activities of the government with SKNIS. Like us on Facebook. Listen to us on SoundCloud. Follow us on Twitter. And watch our videos on YouTube. Connect with us today. SKNIS, St. Kitts and Nevis Information Service.